Welcome to Hot Topics on the Edge of NFT. I'm Richard Carthon, and I'm here with my co-host Joshua Krieger. And today we're joined by Wayne Marcel, head of growth at FIO and a passionate advocate for Web3 adoption.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Great to have you on the show, Wayne. Coming up today, Google quantum chip, Microsoft Bitcoin rejection, Web3 treasure hunt, and FIO's big milestone.
It's another production of the Edge of Company, a rapidly growing media ecosystem empowering the pioneers of Web3 tech and culture.
Let's get started. So first, Google has unveiled a quantum supercomputer called Willow. This chip is so powerful that it can perform tasks in 5 minutes that would take a classical supercomputer, get this, 10 septillion years. To put that in perspective, that's way longer than the universe has existed. So naturally, everyone's asking, what does this mean for Bitcoin and crypto security? We know Bitcoin relies on algorithms like the SHA-256 for mining and the ECDSA for digital signatures. But could quantum computing break these? Richard, what's your take on this big development?
Let's just first start with quantum computing. It doesn't pose a theoretical threat to the cryptographic algorithms underpinning Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, but Willow is not an immediate threat, but it could be in the future because basically quantum decryption is far from being practical, but we're already seeing crypto researchers beginning to work on quantum resistant algos to future proof blockchain systems. But, essentially what this super chip could do, they always talk about, the 51% takeover, something like that could happen in theory if this supercomputer is able to actualize its full ability. But, Wayne, you've been in space for a while. What's your perspective on this?
Yeah, I mean, two different ways to look at this. In the short term, it's definitely not a threat. It's just being unveiled, and there's a long time before this thing would actually hit mainstream use where it's available really to anyone outside of the company, that's unveiling it. And really, there's a lot there's a lot of other low-hanging fruit than to try to hack, the cryptographic algorithms that whether it's Bitcoin or some other cryptocurrencies, there could be some very centralized blockchain networks. There's a sliding scale of decentralization in all networks. I think it's like 0 to Bitcoin. And somewhere along the way, there's a lot of networks that could be easily brute force, but there's a lot of other use cases that you could see, a lot more low-hanging fruit. I think actually the banking industry needs to work about this more than the crypto and blockchain, the whole, industry, including worrying about Bitcoin. So it's a long way from fruition, unveiling to getting to the market. This thing's going to have probably only, I think, institutional use in the beginning. So we'll see what happens when it goes to market. But I just think there's so much other low hanging fruit, but everybody needs to focus on upping their security methods, protocols. There's really nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with being too prepared. I know personally, I've just switched some of my individual wallets over to multi-sig, which means, I have to access multiple devices just to be able to sign a transaction now. And it's just another point of friction for hackers, anyone that may want to use this technology in the future. But it's always about just even right now when people get hacked, people are going after low hanging fruit. They're going after people like my parents that would probably use the same password on everything. Right. So if you take steps to make yours significantly harder to crack, then that's where the most people are at risk. So practice good digital security. And other than that, all we can do is watch it. I think a lot of developers will keep an eye on it to see, and you'll probably see some security enhancements come along the way, but those are going to happen a lot quicker than the actual threat of quantum computing.
Interesting perspective, Wayne. Definitely wish I had a product like this around when I lost my Tezos key from that ICO. But the flip side, of course, is that, someone else could use this to get into someone else's crypto, right? So I do think that this will expedite more aggressive security measures. It's always sort of this, it's a arm wrestling match, a tug of war, if you will, between the security sort of standards and those out there that want to get into one stuff. I think as we're, on a bull market cycle, I think this is definitely a word of caution, not only to consumers to tighten up their security, but to all the layer ones, the layer twos, the dApps, the exchanges, a close look at security measures and up their games as well. Richard, what else is next?
All right, it's time to talk about Microsoft. Microsoft shareholders recently voted against a proposal to allocate Bitcoin to the company's balance sheet. The resolution, backed by National Center for Public Policy Research, argued that Bitcoin could be a strategic move to diversify and enhance shareholder value. However, Microsoft board pushed back, citing Bitcoin's volatility and emphasizing the need for stable investments for corporate treasury management. Josh, it feels like a tug of war going back with innovation and caution. What's your perspective?
Yeah, it would have been awesome to have Microsoft on the Bitcoin train, but I guess not yet. I think the vote highlights an ongoing divide in sort of how traditional institutes perceive Bitcoin. On one hand, you've got proponents like NCPPR and Michael Saylor claiming that Bitcoin is the next big wave. And then on the other hand, Microsoft's board has, their current financial strategies and they feel, they're already doing the right things. I do think that this type of conversation within a big company is an interesting signal of more folks joining the train this year. I would anticipate a steady stream of announcements of pro Bitcoin sort of policies in the corporate world and in more countries coming along for the ride as well during this next cycle. That's my take at this point. Wayne, what do you think?
Yeah, it's not surprising to me. I mean, when you think about Microsoft shareholders, I think one of the analogies I used earlier, like dinosaurs. There's legacy shareholders who control the majority of the voting, and Microsoft doesn't really have a good track record of picking tech winners. I mean, I hate to say that with Microsoft, but they passed on initially on the web browser, and then they tried to play catch up. They passed on the cell phone technology, and then they tried to play catch up and launch a Windows Phone too little, too late. So this is just another misstep, I think, of Bitcoin. The point of volatility, I mean, anybody can zoom out. Nobody that's, whether it's a corporation or an individual, nobody that's had Bitcoin on their balance sheets for 4 years or more has ever regretted doing that compared to dollars or really just about any other type of investment. And I think companies need to take note that the whole point of this is if you're holding a majority reserve of your treasury in dollars or fixed assets with slight gains that are, mostly pegged to the dollar, maybe, that doesn't outpace inflation, then you're losing treasury value every month, every year. So not a surprise for Microsoft. I think a lot of companies that are more on the cutting edge are really going to start to take note and add it to their treasury balance sheet. And you're going to see, I mean, Michael Saylor, you listen to him talk, I mean, he's very convincing about why. But to me, just anybody that looks at it without a biased view of Bitcoin, and once they truly understand Bitcoin, the economics of it, the supply, and look at the history, it for to vote no, it's gotta be either ignorance or, they're just against whatever Bitcoin stands for in general. But it wasn't surprising. And Microsoft has had many missteps along the way. They gave us Windows and everything else. It seems like they've been trying to play catch up on since.
For our listeners at home, Wayne is wearing a Bitcoin jersey. So clearly there is a personal opinion involved in his commentary here that I happen to sort of agree with on this occasion. Richard, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm not shocked by Microsoft's decision. As Wayne said, they have a lot of huge history of not picking winners early and then playing catch up. As Wayne said, a lot of the traditional companies who did put Bitcoin on their sheets, had they waited, they ultimately would have made money and they'd be looking very smart. But at the same time, the challenge that I think Microsoft is facing, and even a lot of these traditional companies, is they're playing the quarter game. They have to continuously win each quarter. They don't have, I mean, sure, they have a long term vision, but they're constantly having to explain to their shareholders on a quarterly basis. And yes, although Bitcoin is on the up and up with its upswing, when it's bear market and it's time to pull back, the pullbacks are very hard. Like for example, Elon with Tesla put Bitcoin on its books. And in the short term, if you're having to look at it from a quarterly standpoint, when Bitcoin went all the way down to, below sub 20,000, didn't look great for shareholders and didn't look like a great idea. But had he held the entire time, would look like a genius now. So the only problem with these traditional companies having to play the quarter game, aka you have these numbers that you have to be hitting each quarter, it is a little bit more risky. Now, I don't think that's going to deter other large corporations to start to get Bitcoin on their sheets. I think they probably don't do a huge amount, but I think they start to slowly accumulate over time. And I also think that It's going to be interesting to see the first companies that do it, because they are going to be seen as innovators, right? They're going to be seen as, when people were first investing in like the dot coms moments, and got into some of these earlier companies, though they all don't make it, the ones that got in early were right. And, as you're looking at all of crypto, Bitcoin isn't going anywhere. And I think that's just apparent. Again, not shocked. I think other companies will come in, but this is the thing to keep in mind with these larger corporations. They're playing the quarter game, not the long game.
One of the things you also want to look at when outside of, yeah, I'm biased for Bitcoin, but when you look at how many people you think are actually holding Microsoft shares in their own personal stock accounts versus how many are managed by large hedge funds and others, where they're, and most of these people, they have it within those funds. The individuals aren't the ones that are voting. They're basically, if there's any votes to be had, they're delegating votes to that. And so I think that's another thing to think about. Some of these larger companies that, most of their shareholders are a ton of individuals that are grouped into individual hedge funds or retirement funds or other types of funds. Those people may still see Bitcoin as a threat in terms of investment vehicles, and maybe even lost some clients to that. So I think when we get more purist voting in terms of the actual individual shareholders, and which will be a lot of these newer companies where people have shares in those companies individually held privately, and then I just allocate it to some retirement fund somewhere.
Very cool. Appreciate your perspective on that, Wayne. And speaking of innovators that are sort of taking things to the next level, there's a Web3 Wonka who has hid $2 million of Bitcoin in 5 treasure chests. So this story blends fantasy and finance. These chests are not just packed with Bitcoin, they also contain rare Pokemon cards, historical shipwreck artifacts, sports memorabilia, and even gold. Let me redo that because I said $2 million of Bitcoin. I got it wrong. So I'm going to start over. Appreciate everyone's perspective. And speaking of folks that are actually pushing innovation, there's a new Web3 Wonka in the house. A Bitcoin investor has hid $2 million of treasure in 5 different treasure chests. So this is a little bit of fantasy and finance blended together. These $2 million of treasures are hidden across the USA. These chests aren't just packed with Bitcoin, they also contain rare Pokemon cards, historical shipwreck artifacts, sports memorabilia, and even gold. So what's the catch? To join the hunt, you'll need to buy the investor's book, which provides clues to the treasure's location. Richard, this kind of feels like a modern day Willy Wonka meets Web3 story. It reminds me a little bit about, Gary Vee's book and how he had some incentives on buying it around an NFT drop, but takes it to the next level. What do you think about this creative fusion of treasure hunting and blockchain culture?
Yeah, it's very interesting, right? Like from a marketing standpoint, it's a great way to capture people's attention. That's another way to get people interested in. It feels like a fair game for everyone, right? As long as you like basically get the keys to the steps to finding the treasure. But I feel like this probably got some influences from anime like One Piece or Hunter X Hunter or some like other things out there. I bet like to pull some of these different elements together to make this quest, if you will, I think is very clever and fun. Gets people talking. But again, if you go and do the things and now you have an opportunity to go find a couple $1 million, that sounds like a really great time for some people that would be willing to go do that. I think it's fun. What do you think?
Am I the only one of you guys thinking about using one of these new supercomputers to actually, let's redo that. Yep. So am I the only one of you guys thinking about using one of these supercomputers to hack this and sort of figure out how to solve this treasure as quickly as possible? I feel like I'm not. Wayne, what are your thoughts here?
I mean, it'd be possible if we can get it. It all depends on factor in the cost of the supercomputer versus what the prize would be. But yeah, I mean, you could probably take the transcript of that book and plug it into some AI tool right now and maybe get some better hints than having to sit down and read the book, right?
My thought exactly, but maybe he's thought about that, and maybe these are just really tough clues. Fun story, anyways. And now to a big milestone. Richard, what's next?
So for our final story, we're going to talk about 2 million FIO handles registered on chain. This recently just happened, and those for unfamiliar with FIO protocol, it's all about making blockchain transactions more user-friendly and replacing complex wallet addresses with easy to read handles. This milestone shows a growing interest in simplifying crypto for everyday users. Wayne, we go way back, and for everyone listening to this, I interviewed Wayne all the way back in 2018. He was the very first one to tell me about NFTs and tell me about all these other things happening in crypto. So Wayne is an OG, knows his stuff about crypto onboarding new users. Dude, always love having you on the show. But given your experience in making blockchain more accessible, what do you think this achievement says about the broader adoption about Web3?
Thanks, Richard. First of all, it definitely, for me, it shows that there's a need for people to simplify that user experience. There is, and as we bring more people into it, I don't really have to convince people to use our protocol. If it's available within certain wallets, and we're in some of the major wallets right now, it's just a simple adage. I mean, one of our partners is a very large wallet, and we've done zero marketing about it yet. We haven't really. In fact, press release is coming in a few weeks, and it's been live actually since May. We've been working out some other things, some other features, and it's just users are looking for that simple experience. And it's funny, it came up as an analogy on an X space I was on today, where someone was like, "We've got to hide the wires." And you think about a user experience, if it's clunky, if it's hard, people are just going to pull back. And I see every day people talking about sending crypto to the wrong address, sending crypto on the wrong network. Just over the weekend, had somebody I met at a Bitcoin meetup a while back reach out because they sent a good bit of money on the wrong network, and they needed some help tracking it. So building these interfaces, it's been my theme for the last year and a half. Is every talk I've given has talked about the user experience, simplifying that user experience. And I think people are ready to use these technologies. They're just, if they do use it, it's clunky. The experience can be hard unless we have features that make it simple. And, also there's others they're going to stay away until it gets easier. They're the iPhone people that are like, when early cell phones came out, I was one of the first ones to get one, especially the smaller ones, right? Not the big clunky ones, but it took a while, and and even smartphones, it took a while for many people to adopt it. And it was when that user experience just got super simple. And that's where we've got to get with crypto Web3. So we're doing our part when it comes to crypto transactions, sending, receiving, requesting, or invoicing cryptocurrency. But my challenge to anybody listening is, if you're working in the industry, there's a ton of other features that we have to come out with that kind of hide all the complexities from the user and just make it a simple experience.
Yeah, kudos, Wayne, for to you and to the whole FIO team for reaching this milestone. I really do feel, transacting with crypto has to be as easy as sending an email, and you guys are sort of making that possible. And we talked earlier about sort of nefarious actors and preventing it. I think this is sort of also goes in the direction of simple, and it's not that easy to get into someone's email, and what you guys are doing also sort of follows that same spirit. Anything else you want to share about exciting roadmap items or milestones coming up for FIO next, along with this? Or are you guys still just busy celebrating this big milestone?
I mean, we're celebrating, but we're already moved on. We've got quite of other things on the roadmap that we're looking to add additional features. Our integration into MetaMask continues to get more and more in depth since they enabled Snap. So we've been working with the MetaMask team quite a bit. And then we're also, a sneak peek, we've got some releases coming out soon talking about Trust Wallet, which is also a major wallet, one of the largest user bases in wallets. They've not only adopted our protocol, but they've made it their default naming system within their wallet. So if you go in there, you can get your username at Trust and link all your different wallet chain addresses to one single handle. But that's what's coming. And then on our developer side, our infrastructure team is continue to develop tools to make it easier to use, make it fun to use. We will be sponsoring one of the first events in the U.S. Next year, WAGMI Miami. And we're going to have some cool features we're going to unveil at that conference, and also some great promotions and giveaways as well. So we're just continue to focus on user adoption, continue to focus on expanding our partner base, and without straying too far away from what really got us to where we are today. I mean, the FIO protocol has been live in a few months. We'll make our 5-year anniversary. And so it's 5 years is a long time in this industry, but we're going to continue to innovate and ramp up our focus on user adoption.
Absolutely. We all definitely crushing the game there, and I definitely appreciate you being a part of it. So everyone listening, make sure you go check out FIO and be on the lookout in 2025. And if you happen to go to IRL events, there's a great chance you're going to see Blockchain Wayne, aka Wayne Marcel, at it because man, he is all over the place representing FIO very well. So that wraps up today's exciting discussion. We explored Google's quantum computer chip and its implications for Bitcoin, Microsoft shareholders voting against Bitcoin Reserve, and the $2 million treasure hunt inspired by Web3, and finally, 2 million FIO handles registered on chain. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop us a comment or connect with us on social media.
So thanks for tuning in to this week's journey through the hottest Web3 topics. I'm Josh here with Richard and our amazing guest star, Wayne Marcel, signing off. Stay curious, stay innovative, and catch you next time.